The Everything Sequel podcast is brought to you by Tuity Fitness and the Vegas Beer Guys.
The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. 'Cause we learned it from you, Dad. Movies. Michael Shantz here. Well, the second half of the Halloween movies, I should say. Michael Shantz here of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, of course, you know him, you love him, the man gripping his knife of wit, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. What do you got for him, Tom?
There's nothing to learn. There are no new insights or discoveries. Now, contrary to how that sounds, I didn't accidentally quote a review of one of these movies. That is, in fact, Jamie Lee Curtis's Laurie Strode in Halloween 2018.
Yeah.
Telling the audience something that is abundantly clear about every single one of these movies. But for some reason, nobody noticed it about Halloween 2018, which was
they really
praised.
didn't. And it's funny because there's...
And yet she says out loud in the film what she lets us know in no uncertain terms.
Yes, exactly. And then the movie after that seems to make everything that happened in the movie that preceded it not matter at all. It was just by happenstance.
Isn't that funny? I mean, we have so much to talk about in regards to starting new timelines.
Yeah.
And yet, these, having created these timelines, the first thing that these movies do is try to abandon them.
Constantly.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about this for the listeners, that last October we did what was it, Halloween 2 through 6?
Yep.
And so this year it's hard to tell because at a certain point we start giving up on numbers. But
well, yeah, two to curse if you want to be completely accurate.
Yeah, so 2 to curse. And this Halloween, or this October, we're going from Halloween H2O through Halloween Ends.
That's right.
How apt is that?
And Halloween Ends hasn't even started.
Correct. So, I in thinking about this series as a whole, I really became kind of mesmerized and astonished by its specific longevity. Through peaks and valleys, you can't say this about any other series. Not Friday the 13th, not I just blanked on what I wanted to say, but
Nightmare on Elm
Street, Texas Chainsaw
Massacre,
kind of,
Child's Play.
Right. So Child's Play has got this television series, Texas Chainsaw's got this thing on Netflix, but for theatrically based released movies, this series has got it on all the other series.
Yeah, and this is the tipping point, isn't it? This is the H2O is the movie that could have been a direct-to-video release,
right?
And taken the
went so far as to have a movie written to be a video release.
Although, interestingly, given what we've just covered, it is noted in Taking Shape, where the majority of our information will come from, that the only film series, or the only horror film series that has dragged itself back from video hell is the Amityville Horror, a movie from which we recently covered on a watch-along.
Yes, right.
And when I read that, it was just in parentheses in the book, and I read it and I immediately thought, that doesn't surprise me. I would believe anything you told me about that series.
For anybody that has, gone over to the dark side and gone ahead and watched along with us, man, what a trip Amityville 2 was.
Absolutely. But it's, this series also proves that tastelessness and tone-deaf attitudes by no means ended in 1982.
No.
If anything, if you just go off these films, things are getting worse.
Yeah, right, exactly.
H2O is the political peak the progressive peak of this franchise. And so yeah, it's a fascinating beast of a series, and I don't think it's any secret to anyone who listened to last year's coverage, or just some of our offhand remarks that I wasn't looking forward to to covering the second half of the Halloween franchise.
Yeah, you thought you came up with a brilliant idea last year. Because it meant you could stop at 6, which is where you wanted to stop.
Exactly.
But now it's next year.
Yeah. The chickens have come home to roost.
Yes.
Because, I simply don't have the affection for or attachment to these films that I have to the Curse.
I have nowhere near the attachment that I do for To the Curse.
Yeah, but which means I feel like I am evaluating these without any sentimentality.
Okay, yeah. But I think, unlike
good
you,
for the podcast.
I mean, I think I'm sure I mentioned this last year that this is my all-time favorite series in the horror genre. I love everything to do with Michael Myers.
Yeah.
I am a sucker for Michael Myers. Anytime I see Michael Myers, I get very excited.
Mm-hmm. You dream about him.
Yeah, I have recurring dreams about Michael Myers, and I'm delighted by being chased by Michael Myers in my dreams. Yeah,
and that's good. Yeah, and so I'm not saying this wasn't difficult,
because it was.
Because it was, but I will also say that it kind of evened out quite well. Like. So we have 4 movies, and we will add a 5th as it is released. Yeah. Halloween Ends, but of these 4 movies, 2 of them were much better than I remembered them, and 2 of them were even worse than I remembered them. One of which I didn't think it was possible to have a worse viewing experience of, and yet I did.
I think,
but it kind of, so we've got, but it evened out. Sort of. I was pleasantly surprised by 2 of them, and absolutely mortified by 2 of the others.
Okay.
So
I think I can guess where you're going.
Yeah.
And with the one you're speaking of specifically, I think I had a little bit different reaction within the same reaction, in which it was so bad that it kind of started becoming comical for me. And I almost reveled in the number of times that I laughed out loud. I delighted.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I would say the only...
But mostly that movie just makes me sick.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree really with any of that apart from the fact that I laughed out loud more than once. But then I resented being put in a position where I was being made to laugh out loud. Which I think is a very important distinction.
Yes, okay.
Especially when you're watching a Halloween film where this is by no means the objective.
Correct, yeah.
And there'll be a lot to say about tone and genre, I think, when it comes to the latter trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Because this isn't this isn't a comedy based on the Halloween franchise. Okay, this is Halloween.
Yeah.
This is all we have, and you need to treat it as such. It cannot just be your own thing.
You're starting to paint a picture for me, friend.
Yeah. But anyway. So that's the position I'm in. But I mean, objectively, this is also fascinating because within these 4 to 5 movies, there are 2 brand new timelines created.
Yes, correct.
Which I don't think is particularly common for them to happen so close to each other.
That's
maybe it's getting more common.
I never even gave it. All I've given thought to was the fact that it did happen, but the idea that it is uncommon within the genre.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
Maybe so close, maybe not so close together. I mean, periodically rebooting, but not rebooting like basically ever. And there's a whole reboot that we're not talking about in the middle of these two.
Yeah, right.
That's the other. There's an elephant in the room, and his name is Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
So you're watching both sides.
We will talk.
Yes. Well, maybe yes. Okay.
Your nightmare will become complete.
So when you're watching these movies, there's the kind of specter of the Rob Zombie Halloween
large.
couplet in the middle of it.
Yeah. A man that wants to punish you for watching a serial killer.
Yeah. So it's in a sense it's even stranger that we're rebooting again, because you're not even seeing that there's a reboot. There's a reboot in between that you can't even see when you're watching these. You're watching it the way that we did. So it's fascinating in that regard, and there's again there'll be lots to say about that. It's also interesting, we haven't seen Halloween Ends. We're only going to see it when it comes out in theaters.
So basically, what you and I are going to do is we're going to do, for those of us that have been with us from almost the beginning.
Yeah,
we're gonna Trolls to it,
which means
we will.
I mean, I'm sure everyone understands what you're saying.
Yes, of course,
please elaborate.
But we're gonna rank these 4 movies, and then we're gonna say where we think Halloween Ends will go. Then we'll watch Halloween Ends and report back. Were we right?
Right.
Were we wrong?
And just in relation to that, I mean, we'll get to the rankings we know.
Yes.
Do you feel like you can already place that movie in the rankings?
I am coming into this with a logical guess, but I also am. I feel like I'm going to hedge too, because.
No, you can't hedge.
There's
it's pure speculation, Michael.
Of course, I understand. I want to put it somewhere, and I am unsure. I am unsure if it'll be correct.
I feel I know exactly where to put it, and I feel like there's no other place that it could be.
Oh, no.
That's how I feel about it. I mean, I'm sure I'll be horribly wrong, because as I admitted to you off mic, I didn't see Halloween Kills coming. I don't think any of us did.
Well, neither one of us did.
I think the world did.
Yeah.
So they could blindside us in a totally different way. I also wonder if
you and I are in the minority on that movie.
Not in the minority. Well, I mean, not in the world of podcasting. I know podcaster Matt Goley described it as one of his least favorite film-going experiences of all time.
Okay, good. Well, all right. Then I feel better.
So we've got that barometer. But yes, I mean, anecdotally, I was in an audience full of teenagers on the night it was released. They seemed to be having a good time. So yeah. I have again another one of my.
I went and saw it a few days later, and caught myself saying several times, "What the fuck?" out loud.
Also, I have here in San Diego, we have a great film critic and entertainment reporter called Beth Accomando, who's also a friend of mine.
Yeah.
And she prepared me for Halloween Kills. So she feels the same way that I do. So maybe there's a somewhat of a critical consensus. When it comes to general audiences, I don't know. But I have a theory, and I came up with this today in the shower. So you know it's going to be good. You know it's going to be nonsense. I have it with modern franchise cinema that we have encountered so many films recently that fall into the same category of there's nothing to merit them. There's no merit in them.
Mm-hmm.
And yet critics and audiences seem to really respond to them. And I think it is safe to say that if you present an audience with a certain set of ingredients, regardless of how they're actually cooked and served to you, you will have a mass hallucination and respond positively. And I have a feeling Halloween Kills, well, maybe even Halloween 2018 falls into that category. It's like, it's about what it is. It's not about how it's done.
Yeah,
Bill and Ted Face the Music. I can find no other explanation as to why people responded so well to that film, other than it was a Bill and Ted film.
Right, just the nostalgia of it.
Well, not even nostalgia, just like it's a Bill and Ted film that, everything is there that you want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that counts for way more than what is actually happening in front of you.
Well, speaking to that, and we referenced it before, the book Taking Shape.
Yeah.
One thing I specifically remember from that book was they were going to retcon the ending for the 2018 Halloween. One of their ideas was to retcon the end of the 1978 film, which was to kill off Loomis.
I mean, they might as well have done, right? I mean,
then we wouldn't have this amazing flashback scene from Halloween Kills, Tom.
Well, this is
But my point is that they had this idea to retcon the end and have Loomis get killed by Michael Myers, and it's Laurie Strode who shoots him 7 times in Halloween 2 off the balcony, and that was going to be the ending. And it was John Carpenter who said, "You're just going to piss off fans if you do that, so don't do it."
They really needed John Carpenter to come in and tell them that?
That's what made me sad.
But it's not about pissing off fans. I mean, I get that that's how you stop them from doing it.
It would have pissed me off.
But that's not really the point. The point is you're and this is the attitude of David Gordon Green and Danny McBride throughout these two movies is we're content to rewrite history as we please.
Mm-hmm.
And we will pretend things don't happen and then steal from them.
I never got I have two senses. I never got the sense that they're stealing from the other movies. In the first movie,
they're stealing from movies that they have wiped from existence.
Right. But
well, how can you do both? I mean, how can you do both things with a straight face? I don't know. I genuinely don't understand.
Well, I mean,
I wish I did, because it would make the experience of modern franchise cinema so much easier.
I don't know that necessarily. Just because you decide to create your own timeline doesn't mean you can't.
But then come up with your own timeline.
Be reverential and still like the other movies.
But then come up with your own timeline. What's the point of creating a new timeline if you're going to do everything exactly the same again?
Well, what do you mean? Like not have Laurie Strode in it at all?
No, I mean, I don't, like, if you're going to go to the trouble of removing 3 or 4 sequels from the canon,
mm-hmm.
from the storyline, from your timeline, don't immediately go out and make the same storytelling decisions that they do.
I see, okay.
Make the same references, have the same ideas, have the same themes, scenes, and stories.
Yeah.
It's just bullshit. And once again, we're faced with the direct sequel problem of, it's not a direct sequel to the original Halloween. It's a direct sequel to the things that you put at the beginning of your movie.
Mm-hmm.
To bridge the gap between the two films.
I don't know why it is, but for some reason, all the references to the original Halloween bother me way more in Halloween Kills than they did in Halloween.
Well, it's worse, but
yeah.
I think it's a matter of degree, not kind.
Yeah, okay.
And that was one of my revelations upon rewatching Halloween and Halloween Kills back to back this time, was like, the rot starts earlier than you remember.
Yeah, I think you might be right about that. You're not looking forward to this at all.
I am. Hey, we've got a lot to talk about before we get there.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, though. Based on just this beginning part of our conversation, this is going way different than I thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, yes.
I
well,
think,
we should. I mean, we should probably get into
surprised and happy by that. Yeah, we should get into it. I mean.
Well, the reason is like I'm gonna have to be specific at some point soon if anyone's gonna understand what I'm talking about.
We're being cagey because we don't want to try to let too much out of the bag. Yeah. But
we should be saying that what we're here where a movie that we haven't seen lies in our ranking.
Yeah.
But we're gonna hedge when it comes to the movies that are actually in there.
But of course, ladies and gentlemen, what we should be saying is that we are here to rank and declare on these 4 movies.
Yeah. And that's a very different proposition from doing although I guess we will in our final episode for the series try and do an overall ranking of the Halloween series.
Mm-hmm. We can, yeah.
But when you're doing it just for these 4 to 5 movies, it's a very different proposition. That's what struck me about this exercise. It's it's a field of comparison that creates completely different results.
Right. Right. Let me ask you this, because I always ask you this. Was this easy for you, or was it difficult?
Well, I guess I've already given that away because, there was.
Well, you've mentioned that there are surprises, but that doesn't mean the ranking is easier or more difficult.
I think there's.
It seems to me you've got 2 columns. You've got
that's it.
Good and the bad, and there's 2 of each.
No, not necessarily, but I would break this list. There's a top 2 and a bottom 2.
I apologize. I didn't mean in terms of officially declaring them good or bad.
Yeah.
But there were 2 surprises, 2 movies you hate.
There's a top 2 and a bottom 2, and even within that, I think it's pretty clear which is better or worse. So I guess I have to say it was easy.
Okay.
And I suppose good or bad is easy too.
Okay.
For me.
I didn't sweat a lot over this one. I thought.
But
I
again,
came into it thinking one thing would be very difficult. And actually, in terms of ranking, I thought I knew what movies would be 1 and 2, and I knew what movies would be 3 and 4, and I thought each would be difficult, and maybe I could switch out either one.
I have no idea what you could possibly be talking about.
But upon watching them, that did not happen.
I think my list is going to be more surprising than yours.
We'll see.
What you're saying right now. So it's kind of it's interesting. It's just an interesting set of movies, but when you put them together, I don't know, a hierarchy emerges very quickly for me. But I think that is vastly different from how the rest of the world thinks about these movies. I guess that's really the only point of interest in my rankings, is that I might be giving more credit for a film that people have traditionally given less credit to, and vice versa.
I'm definitely, I think, doing that.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is like finding out that we live next door to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're getting off the train, walking down the same apartment.
I think you probably thought that that a particular movie would be at the top of my list. And if it was that guess, then you're wrong. I don't know how else to say it. This is stupid.
This is like a choose your own adventure, right? This fucking Bandersnatch right now. But also, I mean, at least from my perspective, I think we have another Dark Knight on our hands, because I do think that I'm I'm going to be roundly negative about a movie that almost everyone has good things to say about.
I think I'll have more good things to say than you do, but I am going to, especially on this last viewing, understand what you're saying.
I mean, clunky storytelling is clunky storytelling, right? Whether it comes with a joke or not. Now I'm getting too specific.
Yeah,
let's
specific.
rank. Let's rank it.
Let's rank. Do you want to go first?
However you want to do it. I don't know.
What movie would you think I'd have at the top of my list?
Can I take a sip of water first?
Okay. Because I think we've talked about these movies before, so I don't mean...
Is it a sip of water?
I would have sworn that a movie was going to be at the top of my list. And at the end of the day, I realize a couple of things. One of these movies I think is way better than it ever got credit for. And two,
Agreed.
I think it's, with the benefit of hindsight, it has stayed a good movie for me.
All right.
And so for me, the movie at the top of my list for this secondary part of the Halloween franchise is Halloween H2O.
I'm going to have another sip of water. Because top of my list is also H2O.
All right. So, okay.
Or to give it its full title, H2O Halloween
20 years
20
later.
years later.
I got to tell you, I did not remember that. And then it came up on screen the 20 years later. And that made me laugh out loud. I thought, who put that there?
Decide on a title. First thing you do when you make a film, decide on a title. You can't just narrow it down to 3 options.
Right.
And then present that to the viewer. That's not how titles work.
For me, this is I think it's a pretty goddamn good movie, and for me it only suffers from a couple of things. I think it is an earnest attempt.
It is definitely earnest.
Yeah, to do everything that fans of the franchise would want, and just to make a good movie. And this movie's gotten, I think that the title of the movie is what is mostly given this movie the opportunity to be shat upon more than anything else. That and the obvious references to Scream and trying to make it look and sound like Scream.
I mean, that's understandable in context, right?
In context, yeah. But
given where horror was going at the time.
Absolutely.
It's not an unworthy project. I mean, I think metatextuality and psychoanalysis are the 2 driving forces of the movie, and that's a legitimate place for the Halloween franchise to go at this point in filmmaking history. So, I mean, similar to you, like I think, well, actually, probably differently to you. I feel like in the overall rankings, this might feel like more of a footnote. There's a kind of slightness about it that I think a lot of people use to, use as a weapon against it. But if you flip that, this feels fresh in a way that none of the other films feel fresh.
It does, yeah.
It has
down to the music.
Right. It has a reasonably original concept behind it.
Yeah.
It's executed it's executed quite well, particularly in regards to characterization and performances. And it's, the story is told kind of efficiently and in a satisfying way.
Very efficiently was one of my notes. I thought this movie was very
efficient. And I think, it's the shortest running time of any Halloween film.
But when you think about what they chose to excise from it, some B story about 2 detectives following Michael Myers across country.
Yeah. It's definitely judicious. I mean,
Yeah.
I have some questions about how they're actually using the running time they have sometimes, but that's not to say that I don't appreciate them, editing the movie within an inch of its life.
Yeah.
And that you wish all movies were edited this way.
My takeaway as well.
Yeah. But I mean, to me there was absolutely no comparison with the other 3 movies that we watched.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to everything you said and in regard to everything I said. It really stands out as it has a kind of competency that the other films in this series can't really muster.
Yeah, I think I have nicer things to say about one of these movies than you do, but
this is a way stronger screenplay than the movie you're definitely talking about.
Look at us trying to save shit for our audience.
That rhymes with schmalashmeen, blausen and blebleen.
Yeah, it's fun. We'll get there when we get there. But I had two big revelations watching that movie back.
Okay. And also, just to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, you said the perfect adjective, earnest.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, it's sincere. It's a genuine tribute.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than a disingenuous tribute, which I think all the other films of the series could be accused of.
Okay.
At different points in the movie. Which is not to say there aren't redeeming qualities to at least one of the others.
So that leads me to ask you, we're talking about rhyming with Schmalloween and Schweineheimer,
Yeah.
and you're talking about 2 movies you hate, and I have to gather that the most recent run of these movies, the David Gordon Greens, are at the bottom of your list. So my question to you is, Halloween Resurrection second on your list?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
This was a surprise, as much a surprise to me as it is to you and anyone who is listening.
So,
listen. I mean, we'll get there when we get to good or bad, but there's so much potential in this film.
I think so too.
And not all of it is wasted.
I agree. And I think,
and I can't say that about the bottom 2. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I can't say the same. So that's why it's second on my list. And it's such a nice it's such a nice, I don't know what you would call it, a sequel, but I'm trying to come up with a better word than that. Counterpart. It's such a really nice counterpart to H2O in ways that I'd never considered before. Not when it comes to continuity or anything like that, but
yeah,
like
but
thematically.
here's the thing that's interesting about this movie. If you take out, really the only reason Jamie Lee Curtis is there is because she was contractually obligated to be there.
Yeah.
And if you excise that scene from the movie, it's literally the only movie in the entire franchise that is an outlier, meaning it doesn't take place within any narrative of any of the other movies.
Mm-hmm.
So it stands alone.
It does.
In contrast to all the other movies, and I kind of like that.
I like that a lot
because
too.
That's kind of where you get to in every franchise by the time you're getting to the 8th, 9th, 10th movie.
Yeah.
And
it's a rotten movie with a fresh take.
Yeah.
That's
I was just gonna say that because of that, because it's not burdened by any of the other stories and any of the other timelines, it's kind of a breath of fresh air.
It's a breath of rotten air, but
okay, yeah, fine.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, well, we'll get there with good or bad. There are some batshit crazy choices in this film that are absolutely unforgivable. Nuts. But I think the bones of it, the foundation of it is really interesting. And
when you take,
some of that is often pulled off.
Yes, I think there are I can't believe I'm saying this.
No, I know.
I think there are intellectual ideas behind this story.
I'm glad you took the bullet from me because I didn't want to say that first.
Right.
I didn't want to be the first to say that on an intellectual level, I found this really thought-provoking.
There are intellectual ideas behind this movie that you would never think would be there, could be there, should be there, but are there. That movie's made at a specific time in 2002 in which we're all sort of raptured by reality television. And so that's one idea. And this is sort of graining against that. But then you have this other idea that I kind of find even more interesting and fascinating was if you take Orson Welles and
I like where you're going.
Yeah.
Everyone else has turned off, but I like where you're going.
So when you take War of the Worlds. War of the Worlds, rather. Yeah. So when you take War of the Worlds and you had this idea of this man presenting this fake thing that everybody believed is real, and then the intellectual idea of the people behind the characters within this story presenting something fake that nobody believes is real. I liked that idea.
I like that a lot.
That is an interesting idea.
I like the idea of the meta audience as well. I think that's one of the successes of the movie. And it's kind of interesting, like, more is made of the meta quality of H2O because it's so closely aligned to the Scream movies.
Yeah, right.
And yet this is the one where that concept actually becomes more than just superficial, more than just name-checking.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? Like, you actually feel like this is a movie that's using the genre of horror to get to grips with the fact that media, broadcasting, and popular culture are changing in a big way, and what the fuck do we do with that with regards to reality and fiction? And I never thought that Halloween Resurrection would make me feel that way.
Yeah.
But it absolutely did. Which is not to say that it is a unqualified success, or even a qualified success.
Mm-hmm. No.
Or even a qualified failure. But it's something more than people think it is, and it's way more interesting than the other two films in the series. Not quite as well. I think it's more interesting than H2O, but it's also more flawed on a level of craft.
Yeah.
Right. So you put those two things. But I find myself responding to both movies as together at the same time. Like thinking about both of them at once. Actually, I found very stimulating.
Mm-hmm.
Which is weird because, like you say, they're literally, apart from this interquel. Between the two movies that starts the second one, there's really no serial connection between them.
No, right.
And yet they're both thematically similar, like meta cinema.
Yeah, right.
Well, like metatextuality and psychoanalysis is just as prominent in Halloween Resurrection as it is in H2O, and I think it's the way they deal with it is more interesting. But they drop the ball so many times that you cannot say it's a better movie, or you can't say it's a better movie.
No.
Good or bad is a different question.
Okay, agreed. However,
yeah, I know you've gone with the sitcom version of Halloween. Yeah, I know.
So here's the thing. My first
and the rest of the world is on your side.
Yeah, I mean, when I first saw 2018 Halloween, I was pleased as punch. Like, I had the best time in the movie theater watching it.
I just don't understand.
And it hit all the buttons that I wanted to have hit. Now,
but you like good storytelling. Even more than I do.
I think there is...
Sorry, I shouldn't. No.
The thing is that
you're entitled to your opinion, and your opinion is in the majority. So
the thing is that I actually now that you said it, I think you might be right in terms of our Christopher Nolan Dark Knight Rises.
I realized I
argument.
said Dark Knight, which was not what I meant to say.
Right.
We both like the Dark Knight, just not as much as some people do.
Yeah. I think with this particular movie, I'm with the fandom on that the crest of that wave.
Yeah.
Except I can see that I'm about to fall off my surfboard.
No,
let me tell you what happened on this viewing. So upon this viewing, for not the first time, but more than any other time I watched the movie, I saw all the cracks and all the flaws. But
well, there's nothing there. It's nothing but cracks and flaws. There's nothing there.
There's one thing for me that gels at the end, and it's the idea. But I also think that I don't think it was purposeful, and I think it was accidental. But I'm not gonna fault the movie for that.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
But in the midst of Me Too, and like watching these 3 generations of women drop a flare.
That's definitely accidental.
On their oppressor. It was completely accidental. But
yeah,
it was it really was affecting for me.
Okay.
Upon
I
this
can see
viewing.
that, yeah.
And it was enough for me to barely call it better than Resurrection. So I have Halloween 2018 second on my list. Which means, of course, Resurrection is third on my list. And again,
why does it mean that, Michael?
What's that? Oh yeah.
And why does I called you Michael? Why does it mean that, Mike? I'm getting my Michaels and my Mikes mixed up because we're talking about Halloween.
I go by anything, as you know.
Yeah.
But what's interesting to me is I started this off thinking, okay, 2018 and H2O are going to battle for my top spot, and I'm pretty sure 2018 is going to be on the top. And then I watched the movies and went, oh no. And not only is H2O at the top, but Resurrection. But like you said, it's fun. Like,
it's way more enjoyable as a viewing experience.
Oh, you're probably right, but
I can't find anything in Halloween 2018, but problems and holes and misdirections. Like, it's a film that's constantly taking the wrong road. Anyway, I mean, maybe it's just me.
Well, let me ask you this: what about the trauma for Laurie Strode? Do you wish they didn't even go
H2O? Did it all? Did it better?
Yeah.
This is the problem. Like, if H2O didn't exist, I would have an easier time giving Halloween 2019 a break. But as I understand it, it stole everything from that movie with regard to Laurie Strode.
Do you think the difference, but for them as writers and the director, do you think the difference is functioning versus non-functioning? Within society, within her alcoholism, clearly it's not enough for you, but
no, it's not. But the problem is it's not even, if you're doing the same thing, and a movie that came before you, and the movie before you, 100% of the time handles it better. How can I possibly take it seriously? I never think there's a moment where Halloween 2018 has the edge on H2O in any aspect of Laurie Strode's characterization. Mm-hmm. And indeed, Jamie Lee Curtis's performance, I think, is way better in H2O.
Yeah.
And seemingly she had way more creative control, and I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway.
Interesting.
I'm really sorry. I just can't. I cannot see the good.
I
don't see what everyone else sees.
I see good.
I think it's a mass hallucination. I really do.
I don't think it's that bad. I don't.
It's really bad.
I think it's a...
Anyway, we're not there yet.
I know. Yeah, we're not there. So that means for... Well, wait. So, but do you take 2018 over Halloween Kills? Please tell me.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, you did. Yeah, you did. Honestly,
Okay.
you never... Oh, no, but we've not even done the one thing we had to do.
What?
Which is where does Halloween Ends go in the list?
All right. I'm going to say...
Yeah.
That I think it will be better than Halloween Kills.
Yes, I agree with that.
And be fourth on my list.
It's also fourth on my list.
Okay.
Because, yes, I can't contemplate a world in which there is a film worse than Halloween Kills.
Yeah. If it's worse than Halloween Kills...
Yeah, cinema is done, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yes.
It's time for us to just, go to YouTube and never leave. Like, that's it. We need a new medium. But the other reason why it's fourth for me is because the rate that they're making this trilogy, I don't think they have the time to pull back from their bad habits.
Mm. That's interesting.
So that's why it's fourth. Because I don't. It's like regardless of how you felt about The Last Jedi, you knew Rise of Skywalker wasn't suddenly going to pull the rabbit out of the hat, right? It was... Things are going in a certain direction.
A certain direction, yeah,
It's
right.
really just about damage limitation at this moment.
Yeah.
That is the only job of Halloween Ends. And I don't think the people behind it are capable of doing it beyond a certain level of quality. So that's why it's fourth on my list.
All right. Time will tell.
Yeah, but, I mean, Halloween Kills would be at the bottom of pretty much any list, however you conceptualized it. I tell you, there's a moment I noticed. This just goes to show that it is outside of the Halloween franchise. This is a rotten piece of filmmaking.
Uh-huh.
There's a scene in the hospital during the riot where you can visibly see extras laughing.
Oh, that I didn't see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is, whichever way you cut it, this is absolute garbage and deserves to be consigned to the trash bin of history. I mean,
I've never had a movie just sort of make my blood boil as much as that movie did. So, by the way, officially calling it bad movie. I'll let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, that cat has left the bag. It's in the litter tray. Yeah, no, I mean it's a horrific film.
It really
and
is
bad. Now I've seen it twice, and there was no.
You want to know the worst thing for me?
That it's worse the second time round?
Third.
Well, why did you watch it again?
Because I went into the theaters. I saw it.
Yeah. You're like, that couldn't have happened.
But exactly. But it was on simultaneous release. And so about 2 weeks...
So you went home and watched it
About 2
again.
weeks later, I thought, there's no way it's as bad as I remembered it. There's no way. And I watched it again, and I said, it is. And then watching it a third time, it was even worse. But almost comically so. I almost enjoyed it more this time, knowing how much I was going to hate it, and then seeing new shit that made it even more ridiculous.
There's also on the repeat viewings, there's also of a movie this bad, you also get to that point. It's like, okay, the exercise is over. It's as bad as I remember it, if not worse. When can I get out?
Yeah.
And because we're doing this for a podcast where I have to remember what happens in the entire movie, I didn't have that luxury. But the last 40 minutes of the movie were probably the greatest struggle I've ever had getting to the end of a film.
That's great.
You know, when it's like, It's like, I know there's no payoff.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Like, I know. There's nothing to look forward to.
That movie is cheating every single moment it possibly can. It's always cheating to get to achieve its own goals.
God, you know, and the sad thing is, I feel mostly the same way to a lesser degree about Halloween 2018. But honestly, my main reason for calling it a bad movie is because pretty much all the storytelling is clunky, and there's so much reverse engineering.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is organic in the film.
You might win me over. Seriously.
So that, yeah, and that added to the fact that we already, you know, that everything in the movie is old news, and that you know that the previous versions of the film, many of which this film refuses to acknowledge the existence of, are infinitely better examples of what they're trying to do. I just got nothing. There's nowhere for me to go.
All right, I can't. I cannot fault you because.
But are you saying it's a bad movie? I don't think you are, and that's fine. Most people would call this a good movie. People involved in some of the films that you think are better think this is a better movie than the one they made.
Yeah, right.
Kevin Williamson thinks this is better than H2O.
He's wrong.
He is wrong.
So we're both saying Halloween H2O is good.
Yeah, I think it's really good.
We're both saying Kills is bad.
I think it's good storytelling. Yeah.
You're saying 2018 is bad.
Yes.
I'm so on the fence, Tom. I'm gonna barely call it a good movie.
Yeah, I think that's what you want to say.
Yeah, that is what I want to say. So, yeah, it reaches that threshold. It claws its way to that threshold for me. So here's the thing.
I can't wait to hear why.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Because I genuinely, right now, cannot imagine what those examples are.
You might not be wrong, is what I'm saying. By the time we're done talking about it, it kind of reminds me of our talk about the Jaws series.
Which I was wrong about, so I might be wrong about this.
Well, what do you mean?
Oh, I think after seeing the number of sequels that we have since then, I would absolutely say Jaws 2 is a good movie at this point.
Okay. But do you still have Jaws 3 above it?
It would definitely be closer.
Okay.
I'd have to go back and watch them both.
So for me, I had this sort of epiphany just the other day on a walk. I thought about, in the Jaws series, the only two movies out of all of those sequels that are definitely How Dare You movies are 3 and 4.
Mm-hmm.
Jaws 2, not so much. It's just this like workmanship.
Yeah.
Kind of, it's not great, but
it turns out it's harder to do than I originally thought.
Yeah, to me, it's just this workman-like, solid movie. Yeah. It's a good movie.
I think it is.
But it's not the movie I prefer. I like Jaws 3D more, personally.
Also understandable.
And oh man, it's even more difficult with this series. I'm going to say that Halloween Resurrection is a bad movie.
It is a bad movie.
Because it is a bad movie.
Even I'm not going to try and argue it's not a bad movie.
But I do think I'm going to put
too much in that. There's too much working against it. Like,
yeah.
Beyond, it isn't even a discussion.
Yeah.
That it's a bad movie.
But I think it's the movie I prefer over 2018. I think I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to list 2018 above it, and I'm going to barely call that a good movie. I don't know that I prefer it. I don't know that I prefer.
I understand what you're saying.
That's hard.
I get something out of Resurrection that Halloween 2018, in its lack of imagination, couldn't even dream of getting close to. And that's why the gap is so significant.
Resurrection is clunky in so many ways. But like I said, the ideas behind it are what I like.
The ideas and the themes and some of the execution.
Yeah.
Versus the same ideas, the same themes, and a 0 success rate of execution. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
I think there are successes in execution in 2018.
Okay. I look forward to hearing about them.
Yeah.
Cannot think of what they could possibly be.
All right.
You'll have to educate me.
I've never been able to do so in the past.
I'll stay relatively open-minded.
Okay, fine.
It's the best I can promise.
In the meantime,
because the world is telling me I should be seeing something in this film that I'm not seeing.
Do you resent that more than anything else?
I think in asking that question, you have answered it.
Okay. Well, and in regards to Halloween Ends, I say thankfully.
Oh, do we have to decide that too?
Time will tell. Oh, do you want to decide whether or not it'll be good or bad? I'm going to say it'll be bad.
I think we did for Trolls 2. I think it's going to be bad. I think it's going to be another stinker.
I was slightly encouraged about a time jump.
I don't think they, and this goes back to your original point, I don't think they got the kind of pushback they should have for Halloween Kills for this to...
Definitely not. And I'll tell you one of the things that
for this to be a riposte to that.
Yeah, you're right. Because one of the things that I find remarkable about that film is that released on the same day in theaters and on streaming platforms, and it still made like $150 million.
Yeah, there was a huge appetite for it.
Yeah.
Until everyone realized that it was it was propaganda for the people who
stormed the Capitol
in
fucking
January 6th.
Fuck. So upsetting.
And that is really undeniable.
Yeah.
I've tried to deny it.
Wasn't that your first thought when you saw it in the theater?
It wasn't my first thought, but
you were too incensed about digital Loomis.
He's not digital Loomis though.
He's slightly digital Loomis. In the nose and the chin, as I understand.
Let's face it, he's a Loomis alike.
Yeah.
We've got a lot to talk about with regards to the guy.
Don't pretend like it's the only movie, including our favorite in this series, with fake Loomis voice.
No. No, well, that's it. But as we talked about it last year with the Halloween films, you have to expect a modicum of disrespect towards the memory of Donald Pleasance.
Yeah.
But it's about where you draw the line.
What's unacceptable?
Yeah.
Right.
So.
All right. Well.
This is going to be quite a Halloween ride.
Yeah, exactly. All aboard the spooky train. It's spooky for more than one reason.
That's right.
You're going to have to tell us what you think, everyone. Do you think everybody else has Halloween H2O at the top of their list? I don't think they do.
No, I don't think they do.
Well, they're wrong. You're wrong.
I mean, let's not forget as well, we're going to start by talking about two films that no longer exist in the current timeline.
Yeah, right.
So, do people even consider it real Halloween?
Of course.
Of course, there was a time when people didn't consider this real Halloween.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, tell us what you think. Where do you have these movies ranked? Are they good or bad? Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, Michael Shantz here. I'm from the How Dare You Awards. When you hear us next time, we will be talking about what we think is the tops of the latter part of the series, Halloween H2O. Say goodbye to everyone, Tom.
That's a very important caveat, by the way. That's like the voice at the end of the infomercial that denies denies the entire text.
May cause your penis to go limp.
Exactly.
Say goodbye to everyone, Tom.
Trick or treat, motherfucker.
So much to say. So much.
They got lucky with one acting rapper.
Not so lucky with a second.
And it sent them down a very, very bleak path.
Does the coronavirus have you feeling oogie? Have you been sitting on your couch for weeks? Nay, have you been sitting on there for months? Well, it's time for you to get back in shape. Check out 2AT Fitness. You can find them on Instagram. You can find them on Facebook. 2AT Fitness was started by Tina Bernard. She is ready and raring to go to help you get back into the shape you want to get into. They've got all kinds of classes. They've got outdoor in-person classes. They've got online classes if that's what you prefer. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time to get back in shape. You're going to find a variety of exercises. You're going to have strength training, cardio, weightlifting, even fun 5-minute burnouts that will push you to your limits. So get off the couch, get into shape. Go ahead and check out 2AT Fitness. Tina Bernard has got you for all your needs. I know her personally. She's fantastic. You're not going to meet a better person to help you become the new you. Check it out.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe 2 craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable. They're on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They'll try new beers, they'll tell you about beer. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.